Yes, people, what's good? I'm Kinell, and this is Sinister Cinema, where we get deep into the guts of the stranger side of cinema. Kinell Sinister Cinema is brought to you by Forgotten Sons Apparel. Check them out at ForgottenSonsApparel.co.uk. Forgotten Sons Apparel is a York-based streetwear brand drawing inspiration from alternative culture, tattoos, film, classic TV and cartoons from our childhood. In our own words, if you like our stuff half as much as we do, then we like it twice as much as you. I'm a big fan of this brand and I love the guys who make it. They've supported me for years, way before I was podcasting. They supported me in my battle rap career. You might have seen me rocking some of their garms on Don't Flop and other leagues. I love Forgotten Sons Apparel and I'm urging you all to check them out at ForgottenSonsApparel.co.uk. Right, now on with the show. Hey, what's good?
How's it going?
Safe. Tim, how are you? Welcome to the KSC couch.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm good, you know.
Just,
Keeping busy. Back to my exercise today. So that's why I'm a bit sunburnt. You'll see my nice pink face.
Yeah, we got the whole Suspiria lighting going on, but it does kind of match your natural colouring, as it were.
Absolutely, yeah. My sister was winding me up. She was like, "You're gonna have to knock some sunscreen on your bald spot." I'm like, "Fuck off, leave me alone." Only 31.
Hey, fair dues. So, yeah, you wouldn't guess it from the studio, but it is a really sunny day outside. We're talking 20 degrees. I've been pumping Koji Radical. I've been having a great day. Walk to the studio rather than taking our bus. In my T-shirts, no coat, no jacket, no hoodie. It's been great. So, let's talk about really depressing films.
That's the one. Yes.
And that is, in fact, the theme for today. We're back on the top fives. And this was Tim's suggestion. Go for the really bleak stuff, because you're a fan of the bleak stuff, aren't you?
Yeah, I like a film that, I don't know, sometimes it's the opening premise, sometimes you just read the little synopsis, but you sort of go in going, oh, fuck. And then you have to, you enjoy it, but you also sort of endure it.
Yeah.
And you want to get to the end. There's a part of you going, it's got to have a happy ending, right? And then you sort of trick yourself, and then sometimes it just doesn't happen. I kind of love that. I do too, man. It's that journey, man. It's difficult to explain, to some people who only understand things think everything's got to be a happy ending. It's got to be a hero's journey. It's got to be that format that we go through. But sometimes you need something that just shakes you and makes you think about your own place in the world and that kind of thing. And yeah, it's important to watch those kind of films and that's what we're going to be discussing today. But there's a wide range of films that sort of fit into this category. Yeah.
So should we kick it off? Do you want to give us your first one?
Yeah, so I have got some honourable mentions. I've got some that didn't quite make the top five. Do we touch on those? Or
that's cool. We don't do things tight in here. We don't stick too hard to a format, and it doesn't have to be a top five of all time. We just want five that really meant a lot to you, and we can change direction. We can come up with some new stuff as we go. We can drop things in. We could drop in related things.
All right,
it's all good.
Sound. I'll go with me number five then, out of my top five, and it's The Boy in the Striped Pyjamas.
The Boy in the Striped Pyjamas.
Yeah.
Okay, out the gate, we're already into the Holocaust.
Yeah. I think for me, there's an element of that film. So when I'm saying about the opening premise, you know from the get-go what the ending's going to be. There's a part of you that goes, there will not be a happy ending to this, and you're watching this kind of sweet friendship build. Whilst in the back of your head the whole way through you're going, nah, history's picked the ending of this.
I know where this goes.
There's no way they're going to go any other way with it. So the nicer the little moments get between the sort of two lead characters, the worse you feel inside, because you're just getting closer and closer to that absolutely miserable ending. And you can't help but just sort of watch full on sort of car crash style, can't take your eyes off it.
Yeah.
You get really emotionally invested because they're always worse when you've got that sort of childlike innocence tied into it as well.
Yeah.
So that's my number five. That's the one I'm going to go for.
Okay, so out the gate, we are killing children in the Holocaust. I've actually never seen The Boy in the Striped Pajamas, you know.
No, okay.
Like I'd say I like emotionally devastating films. Like I tend to prefer mine like a bit like slightly distant from reality.
Okay, yeah.
So like I'm not big on my like Holocaust specific films. I'll catch a war film, but
yeah.
Unless it's like a tragic Vietnam film, because like they're still kind of funny in places like, you know, I don't know, that's grim. Well, fucking hell, dropping a bombshell from the start. So I'm
Always.
like, my list isn't in any particular order, so I think I'm gonna have to try and find something to vary. I'm gonna go for Gaspar Noé's Climax.
Oh, nice. That's in my long list.
Yes.
And I tell you what, I love that film.
Yeah, incredible piece of work.
Yeah, and it doesn't have that opening premise thing, but it's got that interesting. They're all like face-on sort of monologues to open, aren't they?
Yeah.
And you're sort of going, how is this going to get to where, like, it says it's going?
Yeah.
And then eventually, once they get into, it's like a dance theatre, isn't it?
I heard it. It's like a dance theatre that it's set in. I mean, like the thing is with Climax, like it's the reason it's an incredible piece of work for me. Like, I mean, obviously, I should mention, like, we're talking emotionally devastating films. It's Gaspar Noé. Gaspar Noé was obviously going to be on the list, and I mean, probably the most logical suggestion for a list like this would be Irreversible, but. For one thing, I don't want to be talking about rape all the time. For another thing, like Climax really connects with me in a way, like basically, if you're not familiar with Climax, the premise is it's set in a dance studio. It's some kind of end of term party or end of season party, or like it's some kind of dance school. I don't understand how French dance schools work, and. After an incredible opening dance number, which really tells you a lot about the characters. Yeah. I mean, like, to have a film that dark that opens with a dance number, like, you learn more about the characters through that opening dance number.
True.
Than you do about from their little two-camera, it's got the old introduce yourself type monologues. Yeah. Like that, you learn a lot more about them from the choreography. But yeah, anyway, they're at this party. The doors appear to have got locked somehow, and someone has spiked the punch bowl with acid, and shit descends into chaos, paranoia, psychosis. I mean, like, the shit goes pretty west pretty rapidly. And I think, like, with this one, Gaspar Noé's managed to capture something on film that I've never really seen caught on film. Like, I mean, like, if you've ever done much raving in your time, which I know you haven't really done so much, but sometimes you end up at after parties that run on for a matter of days. Like, you know, there was a lot of this in my past. It doesn't so much happen now. And like, you do end up in these parties where everyone's sealed in this space, effectively, like by almost a paranoid fear of leaving into the outside world. And like, just because of how weird you all are, because you're all on drugs and all these kind of things. And like, sometimes those parties go on a bit too long, and everyone's been awake a bit too long, and people start losing it, and synapses in the brain stop working so well, and things go a bit, and things can get really, really, really dark in a party that's gone on for too long. And I've never seen that captured on film before, but Gaspar Noé did that in Climax, and like, that's why it's so incredible. Like, flipping, like, it really struck me to the core. Like, I felt like I'd been in those circumstances. I mean, obviously, like, no babies died at any parties that I've been at, to my knowledge.
The film, it's really good at, I think it does a lot with what it doesn't show you. Yeah. So there's things that you know are happening sort of off screen, and they give you that little bit of
there's no real kind of on-screen brutality.
Yeah, and
it's
you
like
see
your awareness sort of.
Yeah, you see some of the, like you're saying, the decision making, the rationality, the logic sort of vanishes slowly, and you're seeing the decisions get worse, and you sort of build with them.
And it's something that's applying to every character, because they're all in the same boat. They've all like taken this punch, which has like a particularly strong acid in it, like, and you know, and the starting point is like, you know, they're already like flipping trying to be professional dancers. So I'm not sure that they went in there with the greatest fucking decision making. But I'm being harsh. Like, you know, chase your dreams.
Yeah.
But, you know, but
not with acid punch.
like this is it. Each bad decision has like a cause and effect, which impacts people, which like causes like things to go worse, and the worse things get, the more desperate and the more anxiety and paranoia is behind each decision that everyone makes, which in turn, you know, causes it to be a worse decision. And it's like a Fibonacci's rabbits of psychosis.
Just on a side note from this one, just because I tried to keep my horrors slightly to the side, which is why Climax didn't quite make my top 5. The other one that didn't quite in that sense was Hereditary. Have you seen Hereditary?
Yeah.
So I rate that film like probably top 5 horrors for me on a separate thing. But the fact that it sort of opens again with this, because they're in like almost like a bereavement group, aren't they?
Yeah.
And the fact that sort of has that immediate tie-in, so you know from the jump something's wrong, the person's journey is about to sort of take that same downward sort of spiral, and you can feel that undertone of grief throughout. And I think that's sort of got a similar vibe in Climax, where, like you say, the fact that their altered state only progresses downwards. No one really has an enjoyable trip in that film, from what I remember.
No one's having a particularly good time. But yes, you know, it's like the you know, they're having a bad trip anyway, but the pressure of having to deal with things on that trip makes the trip worse, which then feeds back into like how they deal with things. Like, so you mentioned Hereditary there. Is that one on your list, or
no? That's just that's another long list one. So next one for me. So, you know how sometimes a film can appeal because it's set in like a completely different sort of area to what you've grown up, or different sort of background, or it's just got a different culture to what you're used to.
When the cultural insight is like it's an interesting look into something for you.
Yeah, so that I'm a big hip hop fan, as you know. That's probably one of the things that sort of tied me into that initially. It was a different world to me. So a bit long-winded, but eventually became a fan of Plan B, and then obviously Plan B brings out Ill Manners as a film. So that's my next on my list, because I just remember that being grim from the go. There's obviously several different stories all tying into each other, and again, every single one of them is having a miserable time. The main thing, though, that sticks with me from that film is there's that bit where the lad's, he wants to buy an 8 or something, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And they're like, batter your mate.
Yeah.
Batter your mate, you can have it. And I was like, oh, he won't do it, will he? Come on. That's his friend. And I don't know why I was watching, I was sort of like, nah, he's a sweet kid. It'll be sound. Yeah. And then obviously true to the film and true to the sort of narrative that was being played out, that one just continues to get gradually more intense for all the characters. They all get into situations that are out of their control. And again, that's sort of what you're saying about the decision-making side of things. Sometimes it's that initial decision there that says path A, path B.
Yeah, and like one of the paths doesn't have like any good options, so at that point you're just doing damage limitation. Like it's an interesting film, Ill Manners. Like I wasn't the biggest fan of it, but I thought I thought it portrayed like what it portrayed quite well, and it showed like an aspect that isn't normally like, because oftentimes a lot of with like street culture films, like UK street culture films, like urban films like that, they either fall into the category of glamorization, or they fall into like just showing something as like just a dark underworld. Like the really like one thing I think Ill Manners does is it kind of reflects the sort of journeys that like how like people are like effectively groomed into the limelight, which is like a conversation that not many people are ready to have. I've like spoke with people about this in the past. It's like how like kids can be groomed into these like county lines gangs, like and like things like this, and there's like that film does draw parallels between that old guy who's like getting those schoolgirls to smoke crack and like chatting up those 15-year-old schoolgirls and like nonsense on them, and like it draws that parallel, you know, in the way that people are groomed to as young as to join gangs, to the way that like a predator would groom what should we call it, a child who doesn't know any better. And like that's like a very important discussion, which I don't think has really happened anywhere else in cinema. Like, so I think like Plan B got that very right. And there's a lot of things that I think are quite accurate to it. Like it's a reflection of the crack culture, you know, like having a mechanic who's addicted to crack cocaine, who has a job and like holds his job down, but is still straight off. But it's still like, you know, straight off for a smoke as soon as he fucking finishes work. And he's like, that's another thing you don't have. Like sometimes it's too much of a binary where like where they represent addiction in films, like that they don't really represent functional addiction. Like, you know, flipping everyone's either like hopeless, homelessly destitute, or just like not really affected by drugs. It doesn't really show that there are people dealing with these problems that are affecting them, that are costing them money, affecting their relationships, all this kind of shit. That's not really like flipping something that we see illustrated in films a lot. The world of the functioning addict who has a job and his life is being impacted. And like these are the people that find it hardest to get help. You know, it's like it's like the whole thing with mental health in this. Like if you contact your GP regarding a mental health issue, like say you think you've got ADHD or something, you'll be asked if you're suicidal or if you're at risk of harming yourself or someone else. And if you're not, even though like the mental health condition may well be affecting your life in a way that's like really ruining it, if you're able to like get through life and function, then you won't get access to that kind of help. And like that's something that's very true with addiction. I know a lot of people that have like had to deal with like quite severe drug problems themselves, but because they've never really like hit a kind of rock bottom point at which they've like had to reach out for help and like could have accessed help if it was there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like the contextualizing of it, like you say, so rather than just going, this is a street kid who's in a gang, the fact that they give you that little bit of like why they've become a street kid in a gang and how this person's trying to cope, rather than just going, character's an addict, and that's their full character profile. The fact that they give that extra context to them does help it to sort of hit that little bit harder. And then films like this, so Ill Manners sort of makes the list for me because it's one where every now and then I'll go to my wife, should we watch Ill Manners soon? And she's like, no, no. And when a film has that sort of impact, that means that you respect it as a movie.
Watch it.
You respect it as a movie, but either yourself or your wife or your partner or whoever is like, no, we can't watch that one yet. Yeah. It's only last year we watched it. We need to give it another 2 years before we watch it. The fact they've got that almost fear element because they impact you that much and they stay with you for the next few days. I quite like that. I like when the film hits me that way. And Ill Manners was one that for like the next week I was like, fucking hell, that was a lot.
Yeah. I will say, like, I say that there's like no real representation of the way that like how like teenagers become involved in gangs, like that, like other than like very specific like kind of entertainments that are like driven for that culture. The one other one that does is Attack the Block.
What you
call it when you got that guy who's like running the weed farm and like you got your main character Moses and like, you know, just sort of gives him like that coke at the start and I think it's like raps a crack like. Yeah. He just goes like, get me however much back off this, like.
It's Nick Frost's upstairs, isn't he?
Yeah,
but he's not the main guy, is he?
No, he's just the farmer.
Yeah. That film, I tell you what, you know, sometimes you see an advert for something and you're like, it's not for me, that.
Yeah.
And then someone's like, give it a go. Just give it a go. That was one for me where I was like, it's actually quite good.
Yeah.
Like, I can get on board.
That's an absolute banger, Attack the Block, man. You cannot go wrong with it. Like, so yeah, Ill Manors, like, Plan B's like, has Plan B done anything since, like, into like, because he did the whole soundtrack to the thing, and like the one thing that did annoy me about Ill Manors is like the whole thing. See, like we have the taxi as like the the ongoing motif in it, and then the very last shot is like the mirror, and you're Plan B was driving the taxi the whole time. Like, is that really the fucking punchline? Like,
yeah, there is that. Like, obviously, he's found out the entire story just through chats in a cab.
Yeah, but I always thought like him like feeling the need to include himself as a punchline in that is something that kind of undermines it a bit. And he kind of like did like the whole soundtrack as a concept album, didn't he? Yeah.
See, I quite like the album, and it's probably... So we saw him live not long after that in Manchester, and I think it wasn't too long after there'd been riots. So, like, the timing of sort of that album and that particular song and that event, essentially, in terms of sort of it being in the news loads and everyone knowing about it. So even if you weren't in any way connected or whatever, you knew that there was that sort of energy in the room almost, and people being
had an
on
awareness
it.
to it.
So like that, in terms of songs I've seen live, that's probably one where like the whole room sort of shook as that kicked off.
Which song specifically?
Ill Manors itself. Yeah.
Because he did like a full album for this soundtrack.
So like the title track, just like the room went berserk for in MEN, as it was then, and genuinely, I don't know if I've been in an environment where it felt like there was a genuine sort of ruckus among so many thousand people, where sometimes when you're sort of up in the heavens or whatever, you don't really feel the energy that you feel in the mosh pit, but this had that in the entire, it was really cool. And then musically, he sort of changed lanes a little bit, I think, after that, and I've not personally followed the journey after.
But it was like the Strickland Banks album, that was before Ill Manors, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like Ill Manors is like the last thing he did that I'm aware of. Like,
I think it was like all Hell Breaks Loose or something was like a follow on, but I think it went more into the singing than the rapping essentially for him from there. Like I couldn't tell you what genre it was, even like whether it was rock, whether it was sort of smooth, anything like that. I couldn't tell you. But yeah, what's your next film?
Yeah, I don't know. I will sign off by quoting Lunacy and saying, like Nuts magazine died in 2013, and for all we know, so did Plan B. I hope you're still out there. I hope you're still creating, but I'm not aware of what it is. Like, I like to contrast it. I'll tell you what, I'll link it thematically. I'm going to go for another music one of a different genre. I'm going to go for Lords of Chaos.
I've not seen this.
Have you not?
No.
This is very good, like, and I think it got to me, like particularly because it's a true story, but also it's an incredibly well-made film. I mean, like, it's got a lot more humorous elements for anything that we should be talking about. But, like, this is, like, there's been two films that have made me cry in, like, the last, like, maybe decade or something.
Yeah.
And, like, I was going to include the other one, which, like, After Midnight, which isn't a particularly depressing film, like, but I thought I should include it because I made it cry. But I was going back through me flipping letterbox and having a look, like, when I watched these, I realised that I watched them both in the same week. And, like, so it was two films that made me cry in the same week, and I checked which week it was. And it was when we were about 6 weeks into 3 weeks to stop the spread in lockdown, like, so I think that might have actually been like a kind of like breakdown manifest in there.
Maybe.
Like quite possibly. But nonetheless, like Lords of Chaos, like still does hold the power to like upset me. Like for those of you who don't know, it's based on a true story about the Norwegian black metal scene. Which yeah, which is not a scene that I am familiar with. I had an awareness of like the church burnings and flipping Varg Vikernes, flipping murdering Euronymous, all this kind of thing. I had an awareness of these things through the last podcast on the left. Funnily enough, like I remember hearing about them at the time, like. And like, you know, there was stuff in the press about like, oh, there's all these scary fucking like black metal people, these Satanists in like Norway, and they're flipping setting fire to the churches and all this. I had an awareness of that at the time, but what you don't realise is like these were like 21, 22-year-old dickhead kids, like that just happened to like capture into some kind of zeitgeist, and most of them weren't really about that life. Like they just got mixed up in something. Like it was just about not being a poser, and it was all that like and
proving their luck, sort of thing.
Yeah, and then like, you know, when that scene starts happening, you start bringing in the bad weirdos, and so this is all based on a true story. Like, I will say that a lot of the people that are involved in it have said like, no, it wasn't like that. But it is like people like Varg Vikernes, who like basically he looks like a cunt in it. And he is a cunt in real life. Like now he's like he's like fucking like a like men's rights neo-Nazi fucking YouTuber that lives in a fucking van and like yeah, no, he served his sentence for the murder. It's not really a spoiler if it's a real life murder and all this, like. That's fair. But yeah, and like it's a very powerful film because like, you know, is like it. There was this ethereal mystique around it, but that was all press bullshit. It was just young lads in their 20s who just wanted to like play dead loud music and get laid and fucking get pissed and all that, like. But it just got mixed into this whole mythology thing that just led them down this bizarre road that led to churches being set on fire to prove that they're really about it. They weren't really worshipping Satan and all that, like.
In terms of just with me not knowing the story then, in terms of the murder element of it, is that they burnt down a church and someone was inside and it was like error, or was there a genuine sort of killing as
no, I'm just going to like pull some shit up here so I can get my facts right before I continue.
Yeah, that's fair.
But yeah, yeah, here's the full breakdown. In 1987, Oslo, 17-year-old Euronymous becomes fixated on creating true Norwegian black metal with his band Mayhem. He mounts publicity stunts to put the band's name on the raps, but the lines between show and reality begin to blur. And that's accurate. Euronymous is played by Rory Culkin. And flipping Varg Vikernes is someone who turns up later and sort of gets involved, and he's a bit of a cunt. And like there was like he was like someone who like started off as a fan and then wanted to become like the main black metal guy, like. Okay. And then he kind of aligned with Euronymous, and like it became like he wanted to be really about it, like, and like eventually, like there's varying reports on how it happened, but it led to Varg murdering Euronymous.
Right, okay.
Yeah. That's and nice. Also the Mayhem originally had a singer called Death.
Right.
No, called Dead.
Okay.
Who committed suicide.
They've not got a good history, this band, have they?
Yeah. Dead actually, like, I mean, this is from the actual story. He suffered from that mental disorder where you believe that you have died. And yeah, like
I don't know what it's called, but yeah, I know what you mean.
Like he suffered from that, and he killed themselves in like this hut that the band used to like hang out with. And Euronymous was like very affected by this, but he discovered the body.
Oh,
he'd like flipping like took his head off with a shotgun. And what should I call it? But he took photos and used it for like Mayhem artwork.
No, you can't do that.
Yeah,
you can't do that.
There's a lot to this, like, but I will say, just watch the film, like, you know, like I'm giving you spoilers, but I'm giving you spoilers of actual real events that happened.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like it's an incredible film, like, and really, really funny in places. And you don't have to be into all this black metal bullshit to enjoy it, because I don't really enjoy that kind of music. They don't really focus on that, like. Rory Culkin puts an incredible performance. Emery Cohen as Varg, also an incredible performance. And it's all in English, so you don't have to know Norwegian either. But yeah, loads of chaos. Fantastic film, and it's one that legitimately made me cry, specifically around Well, the 2 real life incidents, but yeah.
That's I've just made note of that. That'll be a good one for. I'll be able to sell it to Jade on the black metal.
Oh yeah,
it's alone.
It's a fantastic film. It's a fantastic film. I'm just gonna have a grab another beer. I'm still gonna be able to hear you because the fridge is only over there. But do you want to hit us with your next selection and tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. So the next one is a film called Journeyman. By Paddy Considine. Have you seen that one?
I haven't.
Okay, so Journeyman, the opening like gambit of the film is that you've got this sort of UK boxing champion. I'm not sure what level. I don't follow boxing well enough to be able to tell you sort of what belt it is he's going for or anything. But he's got this championship match right at the start of the film, and he takes a few hits too many and gets brain damage. And then the film from there is about him trying to come back from that and trying to sort of properly recognise his wife again, and he's not recognising his kid, and like it is just heartbreaking. And I think
so he's had like damage to the part of his brain that like governs like facial recognition and shit.
Yeah. So his mobility's damaged by it, speech, and I think memory, and then sort of knowing who people are has been impacted by it. And this one's slightly different in that it's sort of it's the nice elements again that like hurt.
Yeah.
So like bits where it gets towards the end and you have these almost they're good moments because it's like he's come quite far on his journey to get to the point he's at. So his recovery's got to a point where you're like, go you sort of thing. But because of the contrast in terms of how this injury's impacted the world around him and how his overall social context has changed, because obviously he was the champ and that was him.
Yeah.
And like all that's kind of faded and his relationship struggles. And there's this scene that I think's in the trailer for it, so it's not much of a spoiler, where he gets to a point where he's phoning his wife and he's just sort of crying down the phone saying, I just want you to come home. And you just and that's in the trailer. Do you know what I mean? And like you're watching, and for me, I don't cry often at films. This one got me. And there was a point towards the end where I was sort of thinking, I'm sure I've not heard my wife crying yet. I've not heard Jade crying. And I've sort of turned over and been like, has this not got you? Like, what's going on? And she sort of turns around, streams of tears, and she's like, I've been crying for half an hour. It broke me ages ago. She'd just been quiet about it.
So used to your wife crying, it's become a white noise machine.
So it was just one of those.
Louis C.K. joke. A white noise machine is it makes noise that makes white people sleep.
So she'd been hit by it. And it caught me just a little bit later, and it is.
And you just got used to like the static in the background. Well, your wife crying's like a tinnitus drone.
She cries quite often at films. Like she's cried at Ice Age. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like she's a sucker for sort of sweet moments in films and that. And I was sort of watching this, and I was just so invested that I'd not really thought about whether she'd been taken by it. But then when it sort of had me, and I was getting teary, I was like, is she? How is she not? Like, I'm a mess. What's going on? But yeah, I think it's fairly low budget. I don't know if Paddy Considine, I think he wrote and directed it.
Yeah.
And then is the lead in it as well. And he is superb in it.
Yeah.
And his sort of supporting cast, I couldn't tell you any of their names, but really, really good. Start to finish. But it is an absolute
Paddy Considine always seems to surround himself with the flipping finest, like.
Yeah, he's really, really good. And I think
in terms of British cinema, like I think he's got to be up there with the goats of British cinema, like.
Yeah, there's two others of his didn't quite make the 5, but I've also considered Tyrannosaur.
Oh yeah.
And again, maybe a horror, but Dead Man's Shoes.
Yeah, flipping powerful films.
Yeah, like. So he's probably the only person that occurs more than once in the whole list I sort of put together to try and figure out my 5. And then I had to pick one out of those. And I think the fact that Journeyman genuinely made me cry, like whereas the others sort of would have me welling up or whatever, that was why it sort of made the cut. It is well worth a watch. if you get the chance. And to anyone else who hasn't watched it, if you want a really miserable evening where you question whether you're a good person or not, watch that film.
Yeah, flipping Paddy Considine, he's like flipping like done loads with Shane Meadows and that. And flipping like I've got to say like he even brings that kind of like bittersweet quality to like one of my favourites of his is like a comedy, like a mockumentary comedy. It's LeDonk and Scorsese.
I don't know it.
You don't know LeDonk and Scorsese?
No.
You're in for a treat. Like it still has this bittersweet quality. Like it's like the actual Knots rapper Scorsese's in it.
Yeah.
And LeDonk is played by Paddy Considine,
right?
And he's like a former like roadie who's like he was like, you know, with all the like Deep Purple and all these in their heyday, like, and he was that guy back in the day, and like now he's trying to like sort of get something going with like Scores, who's like shout out Scores, by the way, flipping Knots legend. He battled my boy Ocean Clash Money, like. Flipping, his music's fantastic. Definitely check out Great Britain by Scores. And he's in this film like it's kind of a mockumentary where like he's this roadie trying to get something going with Scores the rapper, like, and they're trying to get somewhere, but really Scorsese's like all the talent and he's just a roadie who just can't let go of his past, and he's broken up with his wife, played by Olivia Colman, who's now pregnant.
She's great as well.
Yeah,
she's really good.
Yeah. She's an actress that can really get like flipping like she could kill it in something like Peep Show, and she could fucking legitimately get under your skin in some things and all like.
It's her in Tyrannosaur, isn't it?
Yeah,
and despite there being some really heart-wrenching moments in that, it was a scene of her in that got me where I was like, oh, come on. But yeah, LeDonk, by the way, is an outrageous name that on its own pretty much tells you what that is.
Yeah, man. Flipping, what should we call it? LeDonk and Scorsese, like, put that on your playlist. Because if you're watching the films on we're all about the bleak shit today. We're watching the depressing films. You might need a little comedy, but you might need something with a bit of poignancy to it to sort of fade you over. You might need that today. So we're hooking you up. LeDonk and Scorsese, check that out, and big up Scores and big up Knots. But yeah, I'm not going to hit you with a spoiler. Although it does feature a bit like an Arctic Monkeys concert.
Okay.
And with Scores performing at the Arctic Monkeys concert, and they actually did it at a big Arctic Monkeys outdoor gig.
Right.
Like they just like did it at an actual concert, and like so like that part of the thing is like very real. Like the crowd are actually reacting. But sorry, I seem to have diverted there. But Journeyman, yes. Boxer with brain damage. Like I will say, that sounds like it'd be a very good double bill with The Wrestler.
Oh yeah, that's a film, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's a right film. It's been a while since I've seen that.
Yeah,
you could sort of do that, Wrestler and Warrior, in like a little trilogy together.
I'm not sure I'd do a triple bill on that theme. Like, I don't think I would, man. Flipping like yesterday, like I watched like 4 films in a row yesterday because I've just got that Scream Factory like set. I watched Jason Goes to Hell, Jason X, and Freddy versus Jason. I could do 3 films like that back to back. I can't do 3 emotionally devastating films back to back. I just can't do that, man. Flipping like. Yeah, like that's the thing. I don't think you can do an emotionally devastating double bill, can you? Because like the real like if something's like a really emotionally devastating, you've got to like you've got to either like stop watching films and process it and take it in and deal with what's happened, or you've just got to watch something else and just get your mind off it, man.
Yeah, like follow it like Dude, Where's My Car or something.
Yeah,
just, like,
man.
Opposite energy.
Yeah, get a couple of episodes of Family Guy on.
Yeah.
Have you watched any Family Guy recently? Do you know Quagmire doesn't say giggity anymore?
Why?
They do kind of acknowledge it in an episode that that character doesn't play so well in the post Me Too era. So they had an episode where he lost his penis, and like now he's like a weird like he's a character. It's all about his obsession with cats. He's that guy.
Okay.
Because like the old Quagmire not playing so well in the Me Too era.
Yeah, no, that makes sense when you put it like that. Yeah.
Real tough. Yeah, I think like there's a bit where he's actually referred to as weird sex character that doesn't play so well in the Me Too era. And I mean, like, you know, so like they got him like that, but he doesn't say giggity anymore, man.
Yeah, that. I mean, I suppose that was really, really tied in with his.
Yeah, very much so. Like, I suppose like fucking Family Guy can do what they want now because they'll never fall off as bad as The Simpsons.
Again, I've not seen Simpsons like as in modern Simpsons in a long sort of few years. I've knocked it on a few times for my daughter, but like I've knocked it on sort of from the very first episode. So I think we're like 10 episodes into like 1982 or whatever it was that it started, because it's been going a long time. But new content from that hasn't hit me in ages.
Oh, fucking hell. I've been in pubs when it's been on, like, and fucking, like, it's like Homer's a TikTok influencer or something. I'm like, what?
Yeah, no,
like, flipping, I remember one of these guys that says that, you know, like, I'm pro remake, I'm pro all these things. I'm like, you know, I like to see, like, flipping, like, new versions of things. But The Simpsons, like, in the case of The Simpsons, just stop. You've made the good ones now. Don't make any more. Just stop. New Simpsons, fucking like continuing to be made, is fucking more depressing than pretty much anything we got on this list. But yeah, my turn for a film. Like, I diverted for a bit there, so I'm gonna say Lucky McKee's The Woman.
The Woman. I don't know if I've seen this. Who's in this?
Are you familiar with that? It's got the homie Lauren Ashley Carter in it, and some other people that I should write these down before I start. But yeah, it's a Lucky McKee's film, and it's actually a sequel to a film like I was introduced to The Woman as The Woman. It's a 2011 film, and I saw it for the first time. Turns out it's an actual sequel to something.
Is she a feral?
Yes, that's the
feral
one.
lady they find in a
that's the one,
forest.
played by Pollyanna McIntosh.
Yeah. No, that is a brutal watch.
Yeah, incredible film. Did you even know it was a sequel?
No, I had no idea.
Like I didn't either. Like they put Arrow put out a really good Blu-ray box set of it, and they put the original, the original film in the series. It's called the Deep River Trilogy, and I can't remember what the first one is for it. Like. Oh yeah, Offspring, which was like 2 years before. Like Offspring's like it's a more straight up like Hills Have Eyes meets Home Invasion. It's like Hills Have Eyes meets The Strangers. There's a whole family of these feral like people, and they invade this house and shit gets fucked up, and like lots of people get killed, and the survivor is like the woman played by Pollyanna McIntosh.
Okay, yeah, no that was one where I'd, you know, every now and then you just shopping for a DVD and you think, that looks a bit nuts just off the cover of it.
Yeah.
So I bought it as a cheap little, you know, this will be a laugh, because from the front of it, I was like, some sort of slasher film.
Yeah, and it's shot like it's like very like it's straightforward. It's like very much got that 2011 look of like what the cameras looked at the time, and everything was quite bright and airy. And it is quite a bright and airy looking film, but it is dark.
Yeah, the way because it's like little suburban family, isn't it?
Well, yeah, not really suburban. Like they're almost like I'd say like the dad's a lawyer. Yeah, your dad effectively being the main antagonist in that. He's kind of like a well-to-do Republican who's got himself a little outside of town like bit of property.
Yeah.
You know, which is a significant thing, like, because he's like outside of town. He's not in the suburbs. You know, surrounded by woodland and that. Where he finds this feral woman on the property, who he then kidnaps, and
he near enough wants. It's almost like it's got like colonial tones almost, because he's like, let's make this person civilized.
Yeah,
that's his whole thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. Like it's like quite rabbit-proof fence. It's kind of like what should we call it? Colonialism. It's like taming the savages and all this, like, but also ties it in with like because. His wife is kind of like ends up getting involved with it, and his daughters, they don't want to be a part of it, but they're used to dealing with this oppressive man who will do these things and just go along with it. And it kind of like ties in like elements of like how like oppressive relationships and like to a greater degree the patriarchy sort of oppress women and sort of like ties that into like colonialism effectively.
Yeah, doesn't he gets one of his kids to like jet wash her or something?
Yeah.
Brutal film. Horrid.
Yeah.
It's more so because I thought, oh, this is going to be a fun little horror flick.
Yeah.
And it absolutely wasn't.
Like it's Lucky McKee who directed May, and he kind of like presented it like that. Like I think a lot of it's done to get your guard down and make you think you're just going to get because like effectively that's what Offspring was. Like I didn't know it until like there was lots of people that didn't find it out until it came out in the Arrow box set, and like when we watched it, like that's effectively what you the Offspring is what you think the woman is going to be.
Do you say it was a trilogy as well?
Yeah. There's a third part called Darling, which is actually directed by Pollyanna McIntosh, who plays the woman.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I'm not going to give you the setup for that. Oh, actually, hang on. You just said you've seen the woman.
Yeah.
But it's like sort of picks up on the aftermath because at the end when they all walk off into the woods.
Yeah. Bonkers. As if I didn't know there was either a prequel nor the sequel. So I'll have to have a nose at those.
They're all great films, and they're all very, very, very different. Like both thematically and in terms of like what they are as films. Like I mean, like Offspring is what you think the woman is going to be, and like Lucky McKee's an absolute genius for it. The way that he managed to like make you think you're getting one film, but no, we're going to talk about these issues. Yeah. We're going to talk about what it's like to be in an oppressive relationship. We're going to talk about oppression and misogyny, and we're going to talk about colonialism, and we're going to do all these things in a film that's still pretty fucking banging.
If I remember rightly as well, the wife character.
Yeah.
Who is very much played as she's the wife, she's the housewife as well. They give her quite a good bit of contrast as well from like when he's there and when he isn't.
Yeah.
And suddenly when he's around, it's almost like she loses her voice completely. Yeah. Like they start to give her less and less dialogue. And she doesn't even challenge decisions. You can see she doesn't want to do the things. Yeah. But just carries on.
Yeah, you can very much see it like flipping. Look, he's done a lot with it implying like just like he does it a lot without showing it. You never see a great deal of him abusing the family until like the end, but like the way that they act and respond around him, like show the power dynamics that between the relationships, let you know that abuse has taken place, and it's taken place over a long period of time that's like resulted in like genuinely breaking people down to his will to fit his model, like, which in itself like harks back to the colonialism and all this.
That is a mad pick, and also gives me more films that I can watch and torment myself with, which is always good.
Offspring and I think it's Darling, Darling with no G. I've just got to double check this because Lauren Ashley Carter, big up every time, is also who's in The Woman, is also in Darling, which is a very different film.
Okay.
Also very good film. It's kind of like a riff on like Roman Polanski's early work, that one, Darling, but it's like a black and white thing set in a like about this woman moving into an apartment, and like, you know, like is she losing her mind, or like are there external forces? Like, that's a great film, but it's not the sequel to this. Darlene apostrophe is a sequel to The Woman.
Okay. Smart.
So yeah, be checking for that one. Like, we'll watch both them films, but just know that only one's a sequel. Like,
all right, sound. I'll hit you with my next one. So this one had me to a point where I was so emotionally distraught by it that I remember turning to Jade and just being like, I think if you weren't here, because I sort of had her to lean on with this one.
Yeah.
I think I'd have been a mess. I think I'd have been fully blubbering and just like crying on my own, probably like wrapping myself in a blanket style, sad. I don't know if you've seen it. It's fairly recent. A film called The Father with Anthony Hopkins.
I haven't, no.
So this film is about an old man with, I think it's dementia, struggling to handle having dementia, and his daughter, I think this is Olivia Colman again, actually, is trying to sort of support him but have her own life and sort of help him through it. And his like decision making, and there's this recurring theme of him saying, like, have you seen my watch?
Yeah.
And she's like, have you checked your sort of hidey hole?
Yeah.
And he's like, how do you know about that? And obviously she's been helping him for so long that she just knows these things, but he's got no idea. And he'll go and he'll sort of be like, all right, there it is. And he'll put it back on. And then you'll see him sort of like take it off again. And you know the question's coming, and there's a sadness in just how quickly you can see his descent. But then, I'm not sure who directed it, but whoever it is, they've done this thing where they've made the film uncomfortable to track and uncomfortable to follow in terms of character and place, so that you're almost with him in that difficulty of handling things.
Okay, so it's like quite non-linear edited, like
almost. So say if this was the setting for scene 1, and he's speaking to his daughter and he's saying, you know, where's my watch? Then it'll cut away to something, and then it'll take you back to that almost the same place. So it'd be like this room, but with like slightly different lighting, and the telly will be like a painting instead of the telly. And you're sort of like, hold on,
just like subtle changes, like so like, you know, like changing decor that folds.
Yeah, so you as the viewer, you're going, is he in the same place? Is he? Nah, I'm confused. Is this his house? Because he's sort of talking as well about his like, almost like his legacy and the things that were his, and he's lived in this house for X number of years, but then sort of really quickly you see that the house has changed. Yeah. And you're all of a sudden like, so is he at home? Or is he in his daughter's home? And the way it plays you into his discomfort is really well done. And then Anthony Hopkins obviously is top, and he's one of the best.
Oh, legend shit, like.
And he smashes it out the park. Really, really good in it. And the sort of way that he demonstrates the fact that people in those situations are able to have perfectly like rational conversations. It's not like people can assume that they're just gone. Yeah. And you're never going to be able to have a chat with them about anything. Yeah. But the fact he has sort of like still got charisma, and sort of passion in him, and bits of being able to challenge things and sort of saying, no, I know where I put X, Y, Z. And that side of it then played against the moments where he is very vulnerable. Yeah. Really well done. And the way it sort of keeps bringing you through, like one of the really early things that I remember confusing me was you had him speaking with his daughter, and then in the next scene, they like swap the actress out, but it's still his daughter. Yeah. And you're like, hold on. So at that point, I'm watching going, is this person being taken advantage of? Was the other one actually his daughter? Is this one actually his daughter? And the way they do that's really good. So you almost experience the breakdown with him. Yeah, there's like an element of Uncanny Valley to it. Oh, I don't know that film. No, Uncanny Valley, like the concept. Oh, I've not heard it then. Uncanny Valley is when something's like a, you know, like when they make a like human-looking robot, and it like theoretically should look like complete human, but there's just something that isn't natural about it, so it's just a bit off. Okay. Uncanny Valley is when like everything looks like it should be right, or seems like it should be right, but there's something off about it that you can't put your finger on it, and it puts that feeling that unnerves you. Yeah, so exactly that then. So there's things that just little differences. So one of them, I think, is there's like a painting in the background, and I can't remember if it is that they swap it for a telly or they change the colour of it or something. Yeah. But it's just something that they've altered. Yeah. While everything else looks near enough exactly the same. It's kind of like the Kubrick Shining thing, where like he deliberately like laid out like the building so it's impossible. Like so you've got no idea where you are at any point. So flipping it sort of like makes it possible to like get your bearings in any kind of real way. Yeah. But you don't know why, because you're not in that building, but it's just not natural. Yeah. So like that one really did sort of hit me. And I don't know if this is partially because my daughter's only young at the moment, and obviously I'm now a dad myself, and my dad is getting older.
How old are you? 31?
Yeah,
definitely got to be going down with dementia soon, man. You're completely fucked by the time you're 35.
So it's one
off
of those.
your head, no idea where you are. Fucking socks in the freezer, fucking all sorts, mate. You're bollocksed.
So I don't know if it is one of those, just considering what the future may bring, and whatnot, and whether it is like it's just hit me personally, like because of that. I don't know, but that film is well worth a cry.
The father, you say?
Yeah. The father, Anthony Hopkins,
Olivia
Colman, and then I don't think there's anyone else that I could name.
Yeah, what's it called? I'll whack it on my list for when I'm in the kind of mood, because I am not always in the type of mood for this shit, man. Watched 3 later Friday the 13th films last night in one sitting. Okay, I'm going to pull out another one. I feel I should pull it back to a more... I've just flipping like I've bought a bit of decor for the studio now. Like, you know, we got a Chucky here, we got our Annabelle. Like, I feel like I should pull it back to horror situation to more like horror films. Like, so I'm gonna hit you with Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer.
Oh,
yes,
mate. Yeah. I've got a feeling I watched this recently.
What's your relationship with this film? Is it like one you watched for the first time recently?
I think so. Who's the director?
John McNaughton.
I might be thinking of a different one. What's the Lars von Trier one?
Lars von Trier, the serial killer, recent one with... No,
that's House That Jack Built I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
No, then I've not seen this one.
Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, filmed in the 80s but not released to the 90s. Okay. There's a low-budget film sort of based... starring... I've got to start flipping, writing things down. Starring flipping Rooker, your man out of flipping Guardians for the Galaxy and all this.
Okay,
shit, and Slither and all these ones.
There's a throwback, Slither. Watched that as a teenager, I think.
Yeah, that's an absolute banger.
It's a very bloody odd film, that one. That's all I really remember.
Yeah, from 1986. Michael Rooker, that's the one. He's also in Clerks and all this. But yeah, this is a film, like, it's kind of a fictionalized account of a serial killer called Henry, and it's based on the confessions of Henry Lee Lucas.
Okay.
Like Henry Lee Lucas, he had that sidekick Otis and all this, real serial killer. He was active, like, did kill, like, quite a lot of people, but confessed to, like, literally 200 plus murders, like, a lot of which probably weren't him. And there's this whole thing where they believe that the police would just, like, they knew he'd confessed to stuff because he liked the attention. So, like, there's a lot of, like, killers, there's a lot of murders that are still unsolved because he was just admitting to them in exchange for cigarettes or whatever. But, like, Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer is sort of based on the spirit of his confessions. Okay. And it's, like, a serial killer who would, who was, like, killing people, like, every other day and all this, like. And it's very gritty. It's very real, like. I think, like, they were given money and told to make a horror film. They knew they couldn't make anything kind of like a space movie, so they made this, like, a film in Chicago. It's got a real Chicago energy to it. It's shot on 60mm. It's about this character, Henry, who is the serial killer, hence the title, who, moves in with this guy called Otis, who's like someone who he spent some time in prison with, and they sort of like get a relationship where they're feeding off each other and like encouraging each other to do these certain things. And Otis's cousin Becky comes to stay. And like this is based on an actual relationship between Henry Lee Lucas and Otis Tools and Becky and all this, like, and like. But she's like a woman who's like staying with Otis to kind of escape an abusive relationship. And like they're going out there doing all the serial killing. She doesn't know about this, but she's becoming fixated with Henry because she's just like incapable of seeing red flags after being like abused for so long. So she starts like falling in love with him. And that's the part that really gets me. Like the actual like serial killing side of it is like fucking, it's horrible. It's dark. It's visceral. It's very fucking real. It's proper cinema verite. Like there's nothing elevated. There's nothing really to separate it out. It's very brutal and real in the way it presents the killings in it. And what should we call it? So that's quite hard to watch, like, in the same way that, like, you know, this was like the 1986 equivalent of, like, maybe like an August Underground or something today, which is like designed to look like a slow film. It's that cinema verite element that isn't quite there with Henry, but it is very real in that. But the real tragedy is the character of Becky, like.
Yeah, you're sort of seeing her get closer and closer into the trap. And
yeah, because you just know she's just doomed.
Yeah.
I think this is a film that you in particular should watch. Like, you should watch this film with Jade, and I think you'll enjoy it a lot. I believe Arrow have got a big new Ponty box set coming out of it that I've got pre-ordered, and I'm gonna forget about, and then suddenly like 30 quid's gonna disappear out my account. But I'm gonna get a nice new box set at some point in the next few months. Yeah. But it's like a film that's always stuck with me, and like I say, it's like, it's not the killings, it's the relationship. A close one to draw a comparison with is the film Maniac, which is another film that was really like, because normally like films about serial killers are like we're following the victims before they become the victims. So it's, you know, we get to know them, we relate to them, it's tragedy, we get killed. But we never really, like, have so many films, like, we certainly didn't at this point. I'd say, like, Maniac was the first one, where we follow the killer, and we get into their head, like, William Lustig's Maniac with Joe Spinell is one where we really, like, follow the serial killer as he finds his victims. And what you call it, we kind of understand, like, we get to learn that he was abused as a kid and all this shit's affected him and all that, like, and so, you know, he starts this relationship with this photographer, and like, that's a similar kind of thing where we already know who it is. It's that we can see the ticking time bomb under the table that we know is going to explode. Everything is so nice between them, but we know who he is, so we know what's going to happen. And a lot of people criticised, the big criticism of Maniac, in general, that people say is that it seems unrealistic that the woman played by Caroline Munro would end up getting together with Joe Spinell, because, you know, he was a character actor, not the best looking dude. But Maniac was later remade, and it's a fantastic remake, remade in 2011, and this is a film I'd strongly recommend you check out, with Elijah Wood.
I was thinking, when you mentioned it, I was like, I'm sure I've seen this, but I think the
Elijah Wood one, where it's entirely from his point of view, and you can kind of buy it because Elijah Wood's this insane guy, like, who's like killing these women, but he still looks like Elijah Wood, so he's like still got that charm that could win women over and get their defenses down and that, like.
You're right in saying it's different when you follow, so like The House That Jack Built, just in terms of that being the one that I thought of, the fact that you stay with the person that you know they're the villain, you know that they're going to do something bad, means that almost anyone they engage with, you just sort of assume, well, that must be an innocent by comparison. So there's a scene in that where he the main character, the villain in that one, is just talking to a lady on her front door, and he's impersonating a police officer. And the conversation lasts quite a while. But because you know what his motivation is, and you know that he's a bad guy, so no matter what her profile is, you have no idea if she's a good person, but you assume she is. And you almost...
but you know that just by being in his presence, she's in danger.
Exactly.
And you know from what she said, she isn't in danger. Have you seen the Poughkeepsie Tapes?
No, not seen that.
That's one you should certainly check out. Like, flipping, like, amazing found footage one by the guys who, like, later went on to do it. It's one of these that falls into the category of extreme horror.
Okay.
Like, people put it into the category of extreme horror, although there's nothing that extreme that takes place in it, just because of how unnerving certain scenes are. Like, there's this one particular scene when we already know that it sort of revolves around, they found these tapes from this guy who's been committing these murders.
Right.
And like, we're watching them back, and it's a mockumentary, like, put together with that. And there's one bit where like these two like Girl Scouts come like selling cookies.
Oh, okay.
To this guy that we know is a serial killer.
Mm-hmm.
We know these are like a serial killer's vids. And like you're watching this video where he's like interviewing these two Girl Scouts.
Yeah.
And it's just fucking horrible.
Yeah.
Because like the scene, like it feels like it goes on forever. And like fucking like nothing's happening, and like there's no indication of any danger, but we know who he is, and we know that they don't know.
Yeah.
And it's just flipping absolutely painful to watch, like. And yeah, bringing it back, that is what gets under my skin in Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer.
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic film. There was also a direct-to-video, sequel, which not so good, but I still kind of enjoy where they like recast anything, and this was very much like a direct, like it's your stereotypes of what you think a direct-to-video sequel are is what this is, but I kind of enjoy it as a daft serial killer horror film. But Henry Mask of Sanity. Yeah, that you don't really need to see that to get the vibe. But yeah, Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. That's a serious one. We're just pulling up to the hour mark, and I need a piss.
Fair.
Okay.
Piss away, good sir.
Okay, 5 seconds left. And we're back after a break that I would have edited out quite quickly. I was going on about Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. What you got to say?
So I am on to my number one pick out of my top 5. And it's a film I watched not too long ago, called Manchester by the Sea.
Manchester by the Sea, yes. This is one that people like tell me I need to see, and then I just don't watch it, and then I just watch like flipping Halloween films again.
I mean, yeah, you're probably doing the right thing.
Yeah.
It's really traumatic.
Yeah.
So it's Casey Affleck and what's her name? I want to say Juliet something, but I feel like I'm going to be way wrong. She's the lady that's also in Greatest Showman. That's the only other thing I've seen her in.
I've never seen Greatest Showman. I'll Google for you now, like.
Nice. So basically, you've got the.
I bring a tablet with a keyboard here to Google things, and then I end up moving the table so far back that I have to Google them on my phone anyway. So I'm doing that, but yeah, you can see the back of my tablet there. Got some stickers on. At least you can appreciate that. Yeah, okay. Manchester by the Sea. I'm pulling that up. Manchester by the Sea, the drama. Starring Casey Affleck, Michelle Williams,
that's the one. Yeah, so
and Matthew Broderick, famous murderer.
He's a murderer.
Well, he killed 2 women in Northern Ireland in the 80s.
No way. I did not know that.
Yeah, he was driving on the wrong side of the road, drunk, and he paid a fine of I think it was £75.
Man. That changes Simba, doesn't it?
Yeah, man. People don't know. Like flipping Matthew. There's a bar about it in my. There's a bar about it when I battled O'Shea. If you watch that battle back, there's a bit where I hold my hands up and say Matthew Broderick is a murderer, and everyone cheers because it's like people don't seem to know about that outside of Ireland. But yeah, he paid this fucking £75 fine for killed 2 women driving on the wrong side of the road.
That's crazy.
Hey, yeah. So there's some real life devastation for you.
To add to this film, yeah. Manchester by the Sea. So again, this is one where I've sort of picked it up. I've seen the opening premise and I've thought, this is going to be a nice grim film for me to embed myself in for a couple hours. And basically, you've got this sort of disassociated man who's clearly a bit traumatized, and he's working as I guess a janitor or sort of dog's body type bloke for this block of flats. And he gets called back home because his brother's terminally ill.
Oh, yeah.
And
We're in the happy territory here, aren't we?
And I think in the opening 5 minutes, his brother dies and he's then got to be the father to his nephew who's, I think, 16, 17 or so. So difficult time at the best of times. And from there, it gets worse. So when your opening thing is that your brother's died, open. And it doesn't get any better from there.
This is like the setup to a Scream film and all. Like, this is a setup to the new Scream film.
So that one, it's sort of because you see him trying to grow and you see him trying to be the dad figure to this boy he doesn't know, because he's left.
Yeah,
and you kind of get it implied that he's left because of something bad happening in his life. And there's moments around his I think ex-wife, played by what's her name was, Michelle Lewis.
It's I can't stop closing these windows. Dear me. Oh yeah, Michelle Williams playing Randy.
Yeah, so
the character's called Randy.
I'd forgotten
Randy
that.
with an I.
So
like it is a fucking Scream film. Like even like one of the main characters is called Randy.
So there's moments between him and her where you see them having these sort of nothing conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And again, something's happened between them. And I guess you're going, oh, has she left him? Has he done something terrible to her? And for anyone who wants to watch it, don't mute me for the next second or so. Are you going to watch it?
What do you call it? I am, but I don't care about spoilers.
Okay, so basically, you get to this point in the film where it finally shows you what happened.
Yeah.
And he's accidentally burnt their family home down and killed their children in the process. So, like...
Accidentally?
Yeah. So, I think it's that he's had a drink and he's off to, like, whatever the equivalent of the co-op is in their area, and he's meant to have sort of, when you've got like an old school fireplace and you're meant to put the grid in front of it to stop any sort of like embers or whatever spitting out and catching fire, and it's something like that where he hasn't done a safety measure and he takes longer getting to the shop and back than he should have because he's delayed and he's had a beer, and he comes sort of around this bend and you're watching, and for me I'm watching going, he's gonna hit someone with his car, or something's gonna happen with the drive, and then he just sort of comes around the bend and there's like fire engines and the house is like smithereens near enough, and it's just you see her sort of sobbing, and like the children are being like sort of wheeled off on gurneys in the background, and like again I was sort of watching this film and I'm like, how do they go down? Like, his brother dies and it gets worse.
Yeah.
And I couldn't wrap my head around that. That's not one I'll person. So where Jade's like, no, we're not watching Ill Manners anytime soon. For me, Manchester by the Sea is the one where I'm like, nah, that hurt me.
Yeah.
I need a few years.
Yeah.
And I'll come back to it because it is really well done. But I do need time.
Yeah.
Almost like speaking to an ex or something where you're like, no, just give me space. Give me space. So that would be my my top hitter as a utterly depressing sort of, you get through it, you finish it, and you go, that was good. And you haven't quite got anything you can say. Whoever's watched it with you is also just sat there in the heartbreak of it.
I don't know what I'm going to do for my final film, like, because, while you were going through that, it's like one thing that fucking occurred to me is like, I should have put down, we need to talk about Kelvin.
Oh, that's on my to-do list.
Yeah. Like, we need to talk about Kevin.
Yeah.
Yes. I just realised, like, that should have been on there. Like, that's a very good film in this sort of the extremely fucking bleak genre. But before I fucking like get to that, I will say I found it very funny that on Eli Roth's History of Horror, like you know Eli Roth, director of Hostel, and that, like, on his History of Horror, he had all these talking heads, about talking about all these films. Who do you think he got to talk about? We need to talk about Kevin. This film about a child that just won't behave, and how it's like heading for doom, and how the mother deals with that. Who do you think he'd get to speak about that?
From the film?
No. In general, in life, maybe it's a filmmaker, maybe it's an artist, to talk about like the themes of motherhood and like nature versus nurture and unable to control and so something headed to an inevitable destruction. Who do you think that you'd have got on as a talking head to talk about that?
I'd assume he'd go for a child psychologist, someone prevalent in that field.
A famous person.
Or any famous person.
Yeah. You're not going to get this in a million years, so just throw some guesses out there.
I'm going to go Anne Hathaway. Let's just throw that as a name.
Do two more.
Brad Pitt.
No.
Even close?
No.
Are they an actor?
They've appeared in a film.
Was it Meatloaf?
It was Slash. It was Slash from Guns N' Roses.
Wow.
They got Slash from Guns N' Roses to talk about, we need to talk about Kevin. That's fucking incredible, man.
Was it? Did they explain why? Was there
No, just Slash pops up and goes, we need to talk about Kevin. It's really dark. There's a mother in there. Yeah, Slash, of course, born in Stoke. Yeah, okay. So we've, so now I've got to pull up my last one. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what I really want to talk about here. Like, also on my list, I've got After Midnight. I mentioned that's a very good movie from the makers of The Battery. But it's not really like bleak enough to fit into this bleak films conversation. I was just having a breakdown at the time. I was also thinking of talking about a Serbian film, but I think like I want to do an extreme horror episode. I want to get Zoe Rose Smith down here. I want to get Zobo with a shotgun down here. So I think if a Serbian film's going to get discussed, it's going to have to sit off till we're talking about extreme cinema. Mm-hmm. I was also going to talk about Buried with Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah.
You familiar with that film?
I've not seen it. I know the idea behind that.
Yeah, I might talk about it anyway. Like basically, a dude been captured by overseas forces, and like they've effectively buried him underground, and he's trying to get rescued and all this. Like, there's not a lot I could really go into it, other than see, Ryan Reynolds, before he became co-owner of Wrexham AFC, he was an actor, and he still does some acting. Like, there's still some work that you could see him in. Like, I believe there's some stuff on Netflix and that. He's done some of this, like, comedy bullshit, and he's done some of this heartthrob bullshit, but he's also a very good actor. Mm-hmm. Buried, an incredible movie. And I will say it's the most silent I've ever seen a crowded cinema exit. Like, not a word, like, which probably gives you a hint as how it ends, but fucking hell, it's the Bleak Films cast here. We're doing the Bleak Films podcast. Shit, why's my fucking thing stopped? Anyway, ignore the background. But yeah, we're doing the Bleak Films podcast today, so, you know, it's one of them. So I will say for my final shout, I will say A Little More Flesh 2. Yes,
I've never heard of this.
I am shouting out the homie Sam Ashurst. And I'm also shouting out Mitch from the Soho Horror Festival, where this debuted as part of the Soho Home Horror Festival. And I will say, this is the film that affected me most over the last 2 years in terms of fucking having nightmares afterwards. The first film, A Little More Flesh, is like Sam Asher's film. And it's like, basically, the setup is, it's like a commentary on like an older Jean Rollin, fucking Jess Franco style Euro horror, when there was a lot of bad things going on behind the scenes. And the real story is like the director, played by Sam Ashurst, who also directed it, is doing the commentary, and you find out that fucking bad shit was going on that kind of comes out as he goes through it. And A Little More Flesh 2 is like the follow-up to it is like about Sam Ashurst making a follow-up to this original, A Little More Flesh.
Okay.
And it was made during lockdown, and he's communicating with this actress that he's trying to get to work with him, and she's like sort of filming stuff for him in lockdown and like filming things. He's coming back and editing it, and it's becoming increasingly apparent that he's a fucking weirdo. And like she becomes less and less comfortable with the things she's asking him, and it's like, but she's tied with a contract, and it's how she responds to that. And it was entirely filmed during lockdown, and it gets very, very unnerving. Like, and I've got to fucking Google again. Here we go. Like, I really should be shouting out the actress because it is very much her show. Because like a lot of the stuff she filmed, like on her own, that is part of this, is like it stuck in my head and actually gave me nightmares. Oh my god! Here we go. A Little More Flesh too. Yeah, it's Harley D.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so she does incredible work with this, and it also involves like Sean Mahoney and another pop up by Lauren Ashley Carter, who we love around these parts. But yeah, incredible piece of work. And to see that, I think the only way of seeing it, like, unless you, but I think there was like some limited edition, like VHS thing that I'm not sure is even like a UK VHS. But you can see it on the Trauma Now app.
Okay.
You know where Trauma movies, where like Toxic Avenger comes from, and fuck. Do you know about Toxic Avenger?
No, I'm afraid.
Ah, man, I can't really do a trauma deep dive. But if you want to watch this film, yeah, we're far too late in the podcast for me to go down and explain this to you. But if you download the Trauma Now app, I think you can get a 30-day free trial.
Smart.
I know, check it out there. But yeah, it's very powerful. It got under my skin. It shat me up, and it's lots of cool people involved in making it. So yeah, that brings us to the end of the list. But before we wrap up, tell me about a few of these like also rans, a few of the runner-ups.
So some of these, I guess the first one that I'll go to is maybe one of the earliest ones that I've seen, because it's Butterfly Effect. Because it's just like loads of different ways that your life could suck.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't really have much else to it. Like, obviously there's the whole time travel and going back and changing things and whatever.
We know that your life will always suck.
But yeah.
But how?
Yeah, nothing seems to get better in any version of events. So that was one. Just some quickly. So I've got Monsters Ball, Requiem for a Dream.
Requiem for a Dream. That's a weird thing we're picking. We're picking out like 5 films to do for this. You sort of worry about if you're picking up like hack films. Is it too obvious to say Requiem for a Dream is? But like, it's like kind of if you're at the point where you're watching a film podcast, you probably had Requiem for a Dream affect you.
That would have been one of the earlier ones again. So like, what I guess when I started to get invested in films that are going to hurt me.
Well, when you realise films didn't just have to be like a hero's journey with a happy ending.
Yeah, because even like when it's selling itself to you, it's like, no, there's heroin addicts and they're gonna have a hard time.
Yeah,
and that's it. That's the story, and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, so there's
also those. Old women can also be heroin addicts, but they're getting dealt to by their GP.
Yeah.
Well, meth addicts really.
And then I guess the one that I'll touch on quickly, just as I watched it the most recently out of any of these.
Yeah.
There's a film called Honeyboy. Have you seen Honeyboy?
Honeyboy. I've heard this name mentioned. I don't know shit about it. Tell me about Honeyboy, man. Go into Honeyboy.
So you know Shia LaBeouf had obviously like his mental health issues and addiction issues, and he'd gone away to rehab at some point in like last sort of 5 to 10 years.
Yeah. He's been through some phases, Shia LaBeouf, hasn't he? There was like a big time when like people couldn't tell like if he was just being really arty or like fucking like just really mentally ill in public.
Yeah, so
he had a bit of a Kanye thing going on.
Yeah, so this film Honeyboy, he wrote it about his own PTSD and his personal journey growing up and his relationship with his dad. And then in the film, he plays his own dad, who's been the person that's caused the trauma, and it's semi-autobiographical.
Yeah.
So there's moments in it where I'm like, yo, if this is true, like if this particular moment is true, that's beyond me. I can't deal with that. And there's just, I remember there being one line where
and it's like seen through his lens, like, so even if it's not through, it's like that, like what happened would have been the impact that it had on him, like.
Yeah, so even the creation would have been from that experience. But there's a line, so the actor in the film who's playing Shia LaBeouf in rehab, he's like speaking to his parole officer or therapist or whatever role it is that person occupies, and they're trying to get him to talk through some things. And he says, the only thing my father ever gave me that was of any value was pain, and you want to take that away from me. And that line, I don't know, it just stuck out. I was like, fuck me. Yeah. That's rough. Like, that's such a powerful moment for me personally.
That's a bar. That is bars.
Yeah, so that
bars.
That film's probably the most recent one I've watched out of all of these that we've mentioned, that I'd really recommend. He is very, very good in it as well. And it's a brave move. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of like, I thought the same about...
Is his dad still alive?
Oh, that I don't know. I think so, because there's reference of when, or at least at the time the film was made, I think he'd visited him for like the first time in however long to, I guess, approve it and say, I'm doing this. So at the time it was put out, I think he was. I don't know if he still is, but there's an.
Do you reckon his dad saw it? Because I did abuse you like that. Well represented, lad. I was kicking ass that day. Hey, and by the way, also shagging around on your mother.
I mean, it is a scary like reality that he seems to have existed through. So this is what I mean. I don't know his history enough to know whether all dynamics in it are real.
But, or like if they're just his interpretations of what he was dealing with.
But in the film, his dad isn't his primary caregiver, so to speak. But Shia LaBeouf as a child has hired him as his chaperone, so that when he's filming for Even Stevens and things, and needs to be on set and in that sort of area and someone to deal with the commute for him. So his dad works for him. Yeah. So he's not there as his dad. Yeah. In that it's worth watching just to see his performance really. And it's just really powerful, but not quite to the level of things like The Father and Manchester by the Sea for me.
Yeah. Well, fucking, I think we left you with a big watch list of bleak shit. I wouldn't recommend watching two of these movies in the same night, to be honest. Like I said, like, I don't think you can double bill bleak shit. I don't think you should. Like, I think like you've got to soak it in or like watch something else. So like, fucking, we probably sorted you out for a month worth of watching if you haven't seen any of these. There's some bangers in there. There's some a bit darkness that will affect your soul and some stuff that might be a bit triggering for you. I'll tell you what, just before we sign out, what's one of your favourite palate cleanser movies? If you had to fucking cheer yourself up right now.
It probably would be Dude, Where's My Car, you know. It's so daft.
Yeah.
Like, it genuinely, it's so ridiculous that, like, or actually, having watched it recently, I would either go to that or a film I watched maybe 2 months ago called Dave Made a Maze.
Dave Made a Maze is a fantastic movie.
It's fucking superb. Yeah. And again, it was one of those where I've watched it on my own and then I've sort of been just like nudging my wife, just like, you have to see this.
Yeah.
And she's like, you watched it yesterday? I'm like, yeah, I don't care. We're watching it again.
Oh, yeah.
I'll watch it tomorrow.
Oh, yeah, I could watch Dave Made a Maze today, like, flipping. That's a fantastic film, and that is a great example of a film to cheer you up. Like.
Yeah, it's just on the right side of absurd.
Yeah.
It's so ridiculous. Like, they've taken it to that point where you're like, yeah, all right, fine, that's the concept. For those that don't know, girlfriend leaves her fella alone in his flat for the weekend, and he builds a maze out of cardboard, but then gets lost in it.
It's kind of like a comedy cardboard version of Labyrinth.
Yeah, that's a shout. But yeah, probably one of those two. So if I'd watched boy in the striped pajamas, and I was just having a shit day and was like, fucking, I need to pick myself up. It would be one of those.
Dave
two.
made a maze. Yep, safe. Okay, safe. We'll sign out now, but is there anything you want to get people to get eyes on? Any socials you want people to follow, or has it got any new projects coming up that you want people to know about?
I personally haven't got anything on the way, just having a bit of a breather from any creating myself. So I'll just shout out Larynx Entertainment. If you want to know anything that's going on in terms of Welsh hip-hop, grime, drill, etc., then Larynx Entertainment on Facebook or Instagram. And then if you're looking for anything spoken word-wise in North Wales, then it's Voicebox Wrexham, Voicebox WXM. I think that's both Facebook and Instagram again. Yeah, they'd be the people I'd shout out.
Okay, safe. And if you want to see me smoke the living daylights out of a motherfucker, then you can catch me at Don't Flop April Fool's event in Bristol on April 30th. I can't remember the venue off the top of my head. I don't think my opponent's been announced, but I am going to be doing like one regular battle there. I'm also going to be taking part in like certain other freestyle things, like, so you're going to see me getting a bit daft with it there. And you can also catch me rematching Win Matter in Sheffield on May the 5th. So yes, good stuff coming up for you. I'm Kinell. This is Sinister Cinema. Safe.